My name is Kamari Vance. I am 36 years old. I have thrown many birthday parties over the years, but none of them ever ended with me locking the door on my own parents. This one was supposed to be simple. Balloons tied to the fence posts, a crooked cardboard pirate ship we had built together in the garage, chocolate cake melting slightly in the heavy Georgia summer heat, 10-year-old boys running around the backyard, shouting about treasure and secret maps as if the world were still a kind place. Zaire had been counting down the days for months. He is 10 now. He is still tender-hearted. He still believes that adults tell the truth. He still thinks that imagination is something to be protected rather than something you outgrow. The week before the party, we burned the edges of the invitations together so they would look like ancient treasure maps. He was as careful with them as if the magic would break if he rushed. I wanted him to feel celebrated, safe, and seen. That illusion lasted exactly 4 minutes after my brother arrived. Jabari has always had a way of making rooms spin around him. Conversation slows down when he walks in. People adjust their posture without even realizing it. He didn't even look at the pirate ship when he entered the yard. He just slapped me on the shoulder, like I was part of the catering staff. Behind him was Nyla, dressed as if she were attending a rooftop cocktail mixer instead of a kid's party. Sunglasses on, phone already in hand. And then Kwame, 13 years old, tall for his age, with a voice already sharpened by practiced cruelty. He scanned the yard once and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Is this for little babies or what?" A few kids laughed, the nervous kind of laugh kids do when they don't want to be the next target. Zaire didn't laugh. He was standing in the center of the yard, holding the small treasure map he had drawn himself. He looked at me with confusion, as if he had perhaps missed a rule that everyone else knew. I stepped closer, tried to redirect the situation, smiling way too hard. Nyla brushed past me without a word. Kwame made a face at the pirate hats and announced he wasn't wearing that trash. Jabari just shrugged and said, "You know how teenagers are?" I should have ended it right then and there, but I didn't. I told myself it would pass, that Zaire was resilient, that I was being dramatic, the word my mother always uses whenever I stop tolerating things. It didn't pass. Kwame took over the treasure hunt. He shouted out the answers before anyone else could even try. He told Zaire his clues were stupid. He called him a baby in front of everyone. At one point, he climbed the fence, snatched the pirate hat off Zaire's head, and tossed it onto the garage roof. "Real pirates don't cry," Kwame sneered. Zaire didn't cry. Not then. He waited until he thought no one was looking. I found him behind the tool shed, wiping his face with his sleeve as if he didn't want to bother anyone with his hurt. When he saw me, he asked quietly, "Did I do something wrong?" That was it. I walked back into the yard and told everyone it was time for cake. Nayla took that as her cue to start a live stream. My parents sat at the patio table sipping lemonade as if everything were perfectly normal. I stood at the kitchen door as everyone filed in, and then I said it. "The party is over. Everyone has to leave." At first, they laughed. My mother actually smirked, that tight, amused smile she uses when she thinks I'm being unreasonable. Jabari looked at me as if I had personally insulted him. Nyla looked offended, as if I had committed a social crime. I didn't offer explanations. I just said, "You are not welcome in my house if humiliating my son is your idea of entertainment." Then I looked at my parents. I waited. My father blinked as if he hadn't been paying attention. My mother tilted her head and said, "You always have to make everything about yourself." So I opened the door. No shouting. No drama, just a clear path out. They left, muttering. My parents looked back once as if they expected me to stop them. I didn't. At 9:36 that night, my phone buzzed. "Kamari, you're out of this family." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I replied, "Fine. Then you all are out of the family business. And now let's talk about the money you still owe me." The silence that followed was immediate and perfect. The next morning, I didn't wake up to an apology. No missed calls, no guilt-soaked voicemails, not even one of my mother's passive-aggressive emojis. Just silence, the kind my family uses when they expect me to cave. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table while Zaire played in the living room. He was wearing a new pirate hat we had picked up at the Science Center gift shop after the party disaster. A silent replacement, as if we were trying to rub out a bruise without talking about how it got there. He was spinning in circles, mumbling about sea monsters and hidden islands, still reaching for joy with both hands. And I thought, never again. Not just emotionally, but financially too. My parents owed me $38,000. I had lent it to them during the pandemic when their plumbing and HVAC business was in a tailspin. My dad called it temporary help. My mom promised it would be back in my account by the end of the year. That was 2 years ago. Since then, they had bought a new truck, taken an Alaskan cruise, and paid for Kwame's elite private soccer camp, the one he got kicked out of for disrespecting the coach. But my money had apparently been forgotten, so I had stopped reminding them. Instead, I started acting. The first thing I did was freeze 2 accounts for which I had signing authority: the Business Emergency Fund and the Digital Operations Budget. Both were in my name because my parents never bothered to learn how to use QuickBooks correctly. I didn't take any money, I simply locked them out. Then I called our accountant, Malachi. "I'm stepping away from the business," I told him, effective immediately. There was a pause on the line. Then he exhaled and said, "Honestly, I've been waiting for you to do this." That afternoon, he sent my parents a formal letter. Transfer of responsibility, operational withdrawal, all clean, professional, and final. I also contacted our main supplier, the one who had extended generous lines of credit based entirely on my reputation for paying on time. I told them I was retiring from the firm and that future agreements would need to be reviewed without my involvement. They weren't happy, but they understood. I was the buffer, the translator, the person who made the chaos look functional. At 2 p.m, my dad sent me a text. "Call me. We need to talk. You're making a mistake." I didn't reply. Instead, I took Zaire to the Museum of Science. We stood under the full T-Rex skeleton for 10 minutes in silence. Then we went through the earthquake simulator twice, because Zaire said it felt like shaking the house with your feet. I bought him a plush triceratops and some ice cream before dinner. When we got home, I had 5 missed calls, 3 from Jabari, 2 from my dad. Nyla had left a voicemail. I deleted it halfway through. At 9:10 at night, right on schedule, my mother texted me, "You are being cruel. We raised you better than this." Something inside me finally snapped. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I replied, "No. You raised me to put everyone else's comfort above my son's dignity. You trained me to stay quiet while others had their way. That ends now. I want my $38,000 back. If I don't see it, I'm taking legal action." There was no response that night, but the next morning, at 10:46, my phone lit up. Transfer initiated, $8,000. Not the full amount, not even close. Attached was a single line, "We hope this fixes things." I looked at the screen, not surprised, just disappointed. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Because what they had really lost wasn't just my money. It was their shield. I was the one who fixed the ignored emails, chased the clients they had offended, smoothed over relationships with vendors, and balanced books they never understood. Without me, they weren't respected. They were exposed. By the end of the week, the cracks stopped being subtle. A supplier called me directly, Darnell from Tri-State Mechanical. Even though I hadn't worked under the company name for days, the invoices were overdue, emails went unanswered, and the phones were ringing into a void. "Are you still the contact?" he asked. "No, Darnell," I said. "Call my father." There was a pause. "That's what I was afraid of," he said. 2 days later, a restaurant chain we had serviced for 5 years canceled their contract without warning. Just a formal termination email citing missed appointments and 0 communication. I forwarded it to my dad. He still didn't have the account set up. My mother sent me a message. "Do you really think sabotaging us helps anything?" I didn't reply because I hadn't sabotaged anything. I had simply stopped holding it all up. That night, Nyla left another voicemail. This time I listened to it while sitting in my car after grocery shopping. She called me selfish, vindictive, and emotionally unstable. She said Kwame was just joking, that Zaire was too sensitive, and that maybe I needed to rethink how I was raising my son if a pirate party could break him. Then her voice dropped. "This is going to hit your parents harder than you think," she said. "You don't just recover from this kind of betrayal." As if I were the one who had betrayed someone. The business bled out faster after that. Clients pulled contracts, invoices piled up, former employees started asking questions. Screenshots from an office assistant showed my dad writing invoices by hand again. My mom was calling her to ask how to turn the website back on. Then came the blow in the local paper, a small note buried in the back, but devastating. The school board had canceled their contract after a total lack of service during a pipe burst. The board members cited disorganization and a failure to meet basic response expectations. I read it twice, not because I needed to, but because I knew how much it would hurt my father, the man who had built his identity on being reliable. 2 days later, my mother showed up at my door. Unannounced, she just rang the bell as if she still had that right. She looked smaller, not fragile, just uncertain. "We've had a rough couple of weeks," she said. "We gave you some of the money back. I don't understand what else you want." I didn't answer immediately. Inside, Zaire was balancing his pirate hat on the sofa. I asked her one question. "What did Kwame say to Zaire at the party? Do you even remember?" She didn't answer. After a moment, she said, "You're taking this too far. He's just a child." The same excuse, different cost. I closed the door. Later that night, Jabari called. He said he was calling as Kwame's father, not as my brother. Kwame had been sent to the school counselor for mocking another kid at recess. When the principal asked where he had learned it, Kwame said, "It's how Grandpa talks when he wants people to listen." Jabari was silent for a long time. Then he said he should have stopped it at the party, that he was sorry. And then he told me something I didn't know. Last year, my dad told him the business was in trouble and claimed they had already paid me back. Jabari gave them $20,000. No paperwork, just trust. They had played us both. "They used us like ATMs," Jabari said, "and they made you look like the dramatic one for pushing back." 2 days later, a letter arrived for Zaire, an apology from Kwame. Zaire read it once and tucked it into his drawer. That night, my mother called. I didn't answer. I sent her a text. "Talk to Jabari, then we'll talk." For once, I wasn't chasing the truth. I was watching it catch up to them on its own. Jabari called me the next afternoon. His voice sounded different, firmer, stripped of the usual reflex of loyalty he always had for our parents. "They didn't deny it," he said. "Dad was pacing the room. Mom tried to change the subject, but when I told them about the 20,000, everything changed." He told me my father had called me jealous and unstable, said I was overreacting as usual. Jabari didn't play along. He told them they could keep the truck, but he wanted every dollar back. "I don't trust either of you anymore," he told them, and he walked out. That was the moment things really fell apart. Clients pulled contracts without waiting for explanations. Former employees started talking not out of spite, but out of confusion. The business, which once seemed untouchable, began to crumble under the weight of its own negligence. My dad sent me a letter. Not an email, a physical letter. He told me to stop. He told me I was destroying everything he had built. He told me I would regret this. I laughed when I read it, because I finally understood something he never had. I wasn't destroying the legacy. I had been the one sustaining it. A week later, my phone buzzed. "Kamari, we're selling the business." They called Jabari first. He didn't go. Then they called me. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a photo. Zaire, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, holding Kwame's apology letter with his pirate hat tilted to the side, a quiet smile on his face. Underneath, I wrote one line, "He's okay now. That's what matters." 3 days later, a check arrived, $30,000 Exactly. Attached was a note written in my mother's careful cursive. "This is the last of what we owe you. We're sorry." I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was space. Zaire was in the backyard that afternoon, building a new pirate ship out of wood scraps and cardboard. When I asked him what he was going to call it, he didn't hesitate. "The strongest one," he said. That evening, Jabari showed up on my porch with 2 coffees. He handed me another letter from Kwame, this one shorter, kinder. A drawing was folded inside. 2 stick-figure pirates, Captain Zaire and First Mate Kwame. "I finally get it," Jabari said. "You didn't tear the family apart. You just stopped holding it together by yourself." That weekend, Zaire and Kwame played together for over an hour. No audience, no cruelty, just kids working things out. Kwame gave Zaire another drawing, a pirate ship called Second Chances. Our parents sold the business shortly after and retired earlier than planned. I still don't talk to them, but I sleep better now, because walking away didn't make me the villain. It showed me who truly followed me out. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.